Well, welcome everybody. I'm going to hand it over. I'll quickly introduce myself. So my name is Courtney Barrett. I'm the Director of Engagement and External Relations for CCAPS. What the heck does that mean? I primarily work with our alumni of all of our degree programs across the college. And also I work to do fundraising for student scholarships for all of our programs across the college as well. So I get to work with fun folks like Peter to imagine what kind of alumni and student engagement activities and events that we can do. And with virtual, it's made it interesting and also has made it almost more accessible for folks like Brett, who's joining us from Atlanta today. So I'm going to hand it over to Peter, and he and Mitch can do a little welcome. And Ryan, I think we have you kicking us off as the first alum to go, and each of our alumni will speak for about 20-25 minutes, including Q&A. So feel free to chat questions into the chat box. I will monitor that, and when appropriate, I might interrupt one of you all to ask a question if it's pertinent to what you're speaking about at that moment. But it's kind of free flowing and informal. So, Peter, Mitch, handing it off.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. Um, this has been really fun for me to see these guys getting gray hair. Back. Now I can't see Ryan's gray hair, but I'm sure he's hiding it well because I know if he's doing the job that he's doing or supposed to be doing, he is getting gray hair every day because that's the
Correct.
nature of our business. So, but I remember, dealing with both of these guys in class when they were like the rest of you, asking questions, wondering what that world was like out there, challenging ideas and so forth. And so it's nice to hear how they've arrived back at their careers and to share that information with you because you're in the same boat they were not that long ago. So Mitch, what do you have to add to that?
Well, hi everyone. I'm Mitchell Johnson. I am a senior in the construction management program at the U of M and the president of the Construction and Facilities Management Student Association. Thank you, Courtney, for helping us get this all set up with different alumni, and we look forward to hearing from Brett and Ryan about your experiences and some of your stories.
Cool. You want me to jump in now, or?
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Cool.
Talk to us about your journey.
Yeah, awesome. So my name's Ryan Kriesel. I am currently a construction project manager with Common Bond Communities, which is a nonprofit affordable housing developer and manager of properties. A lot of properties in the metro, but we've got a lot in Wisconsin, Iowa, and we're starting to get our feet wet and trying to find some sites in South Dakota as well. So I'm kind of the owner's rep, if you will, for the construction projects that we're building. So we hire out GCs and we kind of oversee that. Prior to this position, I worked for several general contractors in town, mostly as a superintendent, but I did a little bit of project manager work as well. So I guess when Courtney kind of approached me on this, I thought, I don't know if I have one story in particular to talk about, but maybe just kind of a few things I've learned along the way and maybe can pass along to you guys as you're starting to get ready for joining me out here, I guess in the real world, if you call it. So I think I'll just kind of go through a list here of lessons I've learned. And the first thing I wanted to say is that it's perfectly okay to not know everything and to ask questions. In fact, I would say I'd encourage you to not know everything. You flat out don't know everything, and to act like you do is only going to make things harder for you. So find the right time to ask questions. You don't want to be overbearing, I guess, in that, but it's good to have a thirst for knowledge, and I don't think you should ever lose that. The minute you think you know everything is probably when you should get out of it, to be honest. Technology and everything is always changing, so continue to learn and be interested in learning things. The next thing I would say is that relationships matter. You know, whether it's you and your subcontractors, or you and your owners, or material suppliers, whatever. Treat them with respect, and good things will happen. If you need a favorable schedule, you got to reschedule them, or you need them to drop everything and get to you. If you beat them up on something little, you're not going to get what you need back from them when you need it. So it doesn't matter if it's a sub, if it's, an owner, obviously treat well, but material suppliers, whoever, everybody is human and deserves respect. So treat everybody that way. The next thing I would say is to rely on your team. And what I guess I view this from a general contractor's perspective, has been my experience. I'm not sure if everybody here is going to go that route, or if you're going to be, specialty trades, subcontractor trades. But for me, I say rely on your team, in that structural engineers know structural stuff. Electrical engineers know electrical stuff. I'm not going to override them. I can ask questions and say, here's kind of where I was thinking. Does this make sense to you? But it's okay to ask questions of them and rely on them. They're experts in their field. A flooring subcontractor is an expert in flooring. They're not going to know electrical engineering. Everyone's kind of got their own niche, and rely on them and utilize them in their expertise, and their years of doing stuff. So I guess secondary to that is, you're going to work with a lot of people that have been doing things for a long time, and rely on that experience and that expertise. But that's not to say that they can't also learn new things. You might come in and maybe you've used a computer program that they've never seen before, or aren't very good with it. That's kind of the common theme that I'm finding is, for whatever reason, I seem to know computer programs better than maybe some of my peers. And, take that stress off of them. If they're having trouble figuring out how to use a certain program, just say, I'll help you out. I got this. You go focus on what you're good at, and I'll help you out here. Everyone's got their strengths and weaknesses. Figure out what yours are and what your teammates aren't. Not to say that it's a bad thing that they've got weaknesses, just understand how everyone can work together, pinging off each other's strengths and weaknesses. So the next thing I'll say is, and maybe because I enjoy being in the field and spent some time in the field, but the guys and girls in the field, if you guys are going to an office role, I would say don't overlook or take for granted the guys and gals in the field that are getting their hands dirty and really making your guys' jobs. You're going to live and die by good or bad work in the field. So I think it's okay to look at the field as maybe working for you, but like, that's not a bad thing. It's not, we don't want to look at that as derogatory for them. Reward them for their hard work. Pay attention to what they're telling you. They're your eyes and your ears. And if they say, hey, we need this tool, or we need to do this different, take that and learn from them. It'll help you in the long run as a project manager, assuming that's kind of the role that you're going towards. And it'll pay off. I'll put it that way. If you take care of them, they'll take care of you. The next topic I would say is, not every job you do has to be like the front page sexy project. I think one of the things I learned is that maybe sometimes some of the most financially rewarding projects, nobody even sees that we did. You're not going to build a new Viking stadium right out of the gate, and you're not going to do that every year. It's okay to take some projects that nobody else really wants and cut your teeth in that. Maybe sometimes making mistakes on those projects nobody sees is a little bit easier, and cut your teeth in that. And like I said, oftentimes I found that sometimes they're more financially rewarding. So the next one, I I think Peter probably taught me this one. I know I for sure learned it at the U of M, but there's 4 categories. You guys probably heard this. You know, things you know, things you know you don't know, things you don't know you know, and things you don't know you don't know. Right? And I loved that idea when I learned it in school. What I would say on that is focus on things that you know you don't know. Right? You know that you can get better at that. The things you don't know you don't know. You don't know you don't know that, you know. And to me that's always what scared me when I was starting something new, is like I don't know what I don't know, and that's what's going to burn me. But that's where you can rely on the expertise of your partners and teammates, and they can kind of fill in those gaps. But I would say if you're thirsting for knowledge, focus on that stuff that you know you don't know. The opportunity is there to learn. So expand your knowledge there. And then my last idea is be wise in how you communicate. This is kind of a personal story, a lesson learned, but the first job I ran by myself as a superintendent, it was really stressful, but we were getting down to the end of it, and it was a senior living. We were bringing a group of like the owners, or not the owners, but like the folks that are going to manage the property. We were walking them through for kind of a showing off the property type thing, and a lady asked me about some flooring that was off to the side, and I had known it was bad flooring and I wanted it replaced, but the flooring subcontractor had told me no one's ever going to see it. If when the owners come through they don't see it, I'm not fixing it. So I said that when she brought it up. I said, "Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. The flooring subcontractor thought you wouldn't even see it, and we didn't have to replace it." And that was that. And we went on with our tour. Well, then that escalated within their company and went to the higher ups of my company, came back down on me as I was trying to hide stuff. And now they were really concerned that the entire project, we're almost done, and I had been hiding stuff from them the whole time. And that was not at all the case, but because of how I communicated, that was the impression they got. And that was a tough one to try and overcome, but so yeah, communication matters. Sometimes oversharing may be worse than not sharing information. They can always pick and prod if they want more info, but if you offer too much, you can get yourselves in trouble. And now being an owner's rep, I know that now too. I can use stuff that I learned as a GC, kind of use that against them now, if you will, as an owner, and kind of decipher what they're trying to say. But yeah, that's kind of the list of things that I quickly came up with. I'm sure there's more stuff that didn't immediately come to mind, but yeah, that's all I've got for now. I see your comment, Brett.
I see. I was just curious because I think maybe some of these students might appreciate understanding your perspective on the difference of being a GC versus an owner's rep. Because I know you started out, I think, at Weiss Builders.
Eagle, yeah, which is like a stepchild or stepsister to Weiss.
Right.
Yeah.
It was their non-union affiliate of Weiss Builders, which was the union affiliate, company. But you were building mostly stick frame, three-store kind of apartments.
The majority of my career has been stick framed apartments, hotels, kind of that multifamily type stuff, senior livings. I really like senior livings personally. But when I was a PM, I worked for Sheehy Construction. I did a lot of stuff at the airport, so that was a good learning curve. That was all brand new stuff to me, kind of that real commercial construction experience. But sorry, I kind of jumped in there. What was?
Well, just the difference that you felt going from a GC role to an owner's rep role. You know, what's sort of the differences that you're seeing in terms of a career path, because you're one of the people that sort of experiences both of it, or has experienced both of it.
Yeah, I've experienced a lot of different roles. I think from the GC perspective, there was a lot of stress on the role, because we didn't self-perform anything in the majority of the companies I was with, so we relied solely on all the subcontractors. And so coordinating all the various subcontractors and making sure that they were performing to our expectations in the field. Whereas now I kind of have a sole source of contact as far as, you know, when I review stuff in the field. But now it's a lot more front end, making sure that the architect of the world, Peter, is doing, you know, what we want, and kind of making sure they incorporate our building standards. Whereas I don't, as a GC, didn't really have that control over the architect.
Yep.
I'd say is the biggest thing. And now it's mainly, you know, we're working with the contractors to get the project into budget, and then from there, we're making sure we stay in budget and watch our contingency values.
Okay. Has there been a difference? I know I'm by the way, I'm a longtime donor of Common Bond. Back when they were a much smaller organization as well.
Really? I didn't know that. Oh, that's
yes,
awesome. I did not know that.
One of the people that was a guy named Paul Fate, who eventually went on to be one of the executives at Common Bond. But anyway, is there a difference for you in working for a nonprofit as opposed to a for-profit, you know?
That's a good question. I would say the biggest eye-opening experience coming here maybe isn't the nonprofit versus for-profit role, but it's the tax credits and kind of how we get funding. That's something I never paid attention to before as a GC. Is just here's what we can build it for, and we apply for the funding. But now it's who we source for funding, and each of them kind of have their own requirements for building standards and design standards. So kind of knowing all of that has been a big learning step for me here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Are there other questions out there in the chat? Not paying attention here.
Okay, I see one popped up. Why do I like senior living? I think the thing I always told myself when I was building any project is the quality of the work and the product we were building. My mom was going to live in it. That's the standard I held my projects to. Is that would this be okay for my parents to live in? And I think senior living is especially important because not only is it somewhere that I envision my folks living, but the majority of the time that's the last place that those residents will ever live in. You know, it's kind of their last memory, but it's their family's last memory of them. And so it really mattered to me to build a quality project and have quality craftsmanship and workmanship, because when folks move into a senior living, it's oftentimes not fun, or it's not something that anyone really looks forward to. So if we can build a comfortable environment for them, it maybe is a little easier.
Couple more questions in the chat. Brett says, you mentioned respecting the field teams. What are your thoughts on these new grads taking field-based assignments in the job trailer? What will that contribute to them in their career?
That's great. I intentionally sought out the superintendent role when I was wrapping up school, and actually when I did my internship, because in my mind I wanted to know what it was like in the field before I could talk before I could estimate a project, I needed to know how it was built, or before I could, run it from the office, I needed to know what was going on in the field. That was my personal philosophy, and I'm glad I did it that way. I personally think that whether or not you're going to be, straight into the PM role or a soup role, getting into that job trailer and understanding how it's actually done in the field is invaluable experience. I think you should get your boots dirty and your hands dirty for at least a couple of years. You're going to know so much more about how to quote projects or do estimates on it or whatever, if you know the process behind it.
But also to relate to the field, the very field people you were talking about earlier. It's
Yeah.
much easier to relate with them if you had a shared experience.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, if you just come in and start trying to talk on their level without really understanding that, it's going to be difficult. Maybe this is another topic altogether, but finding common ground with everyone that you work with. Without even trying, before we started, we all just started talking ice fishing, right? Like, if you can kind of develop those relationships, I think things will be easier for you. So.
Okay, cool.
Those important soft skills sometimes what people talk about, right?
Yeah.
Adam asks, what inspired you to change roles or companies at each stage of your career? And do you have any advice to share along those lines?
Yeah, that's a good question. I never wanted to be the guy that changed companies a lot. My folks worked for the same company like their entire lives, like 30 plus years. And so I thought that's how it's supposed to be done. To be honest, the reason I changed companies a few times was advancement. Headhunters are really good at finding you, and more times than not, I tell them to beat sand. But every now and then, it's like, wow, this is a really good opportunity, and not every opportunity is as green as they'll sell you on. But you guys will be surprised at how quickly and how often recruiters will find you and pester you. And I bit on several of them that in hindsight I wish I hadn't, but it's gotten me here, and it's lessons learned. But oftentimes I bit on fancy sales from recruiters. So
yep. Yeah, they're out there, and it's you have to have a lot of sort of personal discipline, and if you got a LinkedIn profile, you will be found.
Yeah, they're crazy. I don't know how they keep finding me, but
but the important thing, and I think you'll probably agree with this, is that it is normal for people to move around, not move around a lot, but to move around. Even though every company would tell you that they'd love to have you there for life, most companies realize that it's going to probably take you 2 or 3 moves before you find home.
yeah,
it's very rare that somebody can start in one company out of college and stay there and retire, 45 years later or something like that.
Yeah. The first time I changed companies, as Peter mentioned, I was at Eagle, and I started out as an intern there and worked there for a couple years after I graduated. And I made a lot of silly mistakes, just I didn't know what I didn't know, and mentally I think I needed a fresh start to kind of prove to myself that I could do it. And it really was good for me and my career, my confidence. When I changed the company, they gave me my own job to run, and I did it 100% on my own. And I think for my personal confidence, I needed that. I proved to myself that I do know what I'm doing. I can do it, instead of always feeling like I'm still that intern that just doesn't know anything type thing.
Right.
So.
Well, I was just going to say, Ryan, one more question from Samuel. Samuel asks, is it ever a bad idea to just inquire further about that recruiter's opportunity, or Is it
I,
just a dark hole that you'll get sucked down?
I don't know. Even today when they call me, most of the time I'm like, listen, I'm not interested, but I'm like, just tell me a little bit more, what is it? And oftentimes I think I've met enough people now to where I'm not interested in the role, but I've helped my buddies get those roles. So sometimes it is just they'll call you and be like, hey, I know you're not interested, but do you know anyone that might be, type thing, and they use us to do their dirty work, but I don't think it's a bad idea, but you just have to really be disciplined and not fall for it every time, maybe is how I should say it.
Cool. Well, thank you, Ryan. We might have some more questions here towards the end, so
Cool. Yeah.
appreciate that. So, Brett, what wisdom are you going to impart on this?
Not much. Hey, just to tag along on the recruiting piece though, a recruiter gave me the opportunity to move to Atlanta, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I like what you were saying, Ryan. They do perform a function. My company, we use internal recruiters, right? So sometimes if you get a phone call from an internal recruiter, it's a different conversation than with an external recruiter. Just something to be aware of, just to highlight. Because the internal recruiters actually know the hiring manager, maybe are looking for fit versus resume at times. So another twist to what we were sharing, just something to think about in case you get a call from an internal recruiter.
Just to know the difference, though, an internal recruiter is one that works for the company that they're hiring for. An external recruiter is basically a headhunter. That's just got a broad network that just as soon as they hit somebody that's got a little bit of pulse to them, then they grab them and see if they've got a fit at a particular company. But they've got no relationship with the company other than a contract to go find people. So.
And also, this has happened to me where I've been the number 2 candidate all along from day one, and those external recruiters use me to make the first position person look better. It's true. Especially early in your career when they think you got a certain joie de vivre and maybe you're a stretch candidate and you could fill the role but need a little bit more grooming. I've been presented that way in the past as you're building your career. So, but don't be offended by it, because it's still an opportunity if you go through the process to learn what maybe companies are looking for. And what Ryan was talking about was, if you know what you don't know, you can start to develop those skill sets to position yourself better, either internally within your company or with the next job interview you have. So, food for thought.
Yep.
So kind of what I had prepared is more of a pep talk. When Courtney had reached out, one of the write-ups that I submitted on was, managing your career, right? And it's not just about getting your first job at what we've been talking about, the whole life cycle of your career. Because I have had a very interesting journey. I'll share more about that. But your career is a journey. It's you need to enjoy the journey and maintain your passion for what you do. There will be risks, there will be rewards, there'll be learning opportunities, but they're all important milestones in your career, and they help you develop how you're going to contribute to this industry. But then when you manage that journey well, the role that you've dreamed of is going to surprise you and shock you, and you're going to go, uh-oh, can I do this? And I promise you, if you enjoy what you do and you continue to learn, you'll be ready. And that's kind of personal for me. And we'll share more about that, kind of where I came from and how I got here. But my journey started out in 1997. I graduated from high school and I started my education in construction engineering at a Big 12 school. I was a union, the day after I graduated high school, I was a union construction laborer in the highway and infrastructure industry. So I was pushing a shovel on road construction projects. I did it to finance my education. The following subsequent summers, I worked in concrete and masonry as a laborer, doing really large high-rise pours, some pours at the University of Minnesota, some large masonry projects for Fortune 500 companies in the in the Twin Cities. I later worked for a mid-sized general contractor as a demolition laborer, doing selective demo on projects that ranged from large junior highs and high schools to some smaller projects that were more for special finance projects that I'm trying to be sensitive to it, but it was some of the local community groups in the area. But you were taking buildings and not just whacking a hammer and tearing it all down, but you're selectively tearing down certain parts and components of the building so they could be reused, and also making it so it was more efficient for the actual construction activities for new partition walls or new plumbing, electrical, things of that nature. Really started to get my mind wrapped around how buildings were built by tearing pieces of them down. So then subsequently, there was an opportunity to go back and work in road construction for my first employer, and I became an equipment operator on large highway projects. Started working with big boy toys and playing in sand and playing in dirt, and these are rollers for compaction. It was pavers, actually operating the paver and running the screed. So I learned quite a bit about infrastructure and even site civil work because of that. It was all hands-on. It taught me how to relate to my peers and my teammates. And also, when you're working as a field-based employee, you kind of become a family. You know a lot about each other because you spend so much time working together. And some of those soft skills that I've acquired were from those early days. But in the midst of all that, I decided, forget the construction business. Everybody that drives by my roller or my paver or whatever is driving a Ferrari or a Porsche, in my opinion. And they weren't getting up at 5 a.m. to go to work. And it seemed like they were all having rush hour until 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. And I'm like, I want those people's jobs. And I'm out. I'm going to go back to the University of Minnesota. I'm going to get a degree in marketing. And I'm going to wear a suit and tie to the office and forget these dirty clothes and sandwiches out of a lunchbox and coffee at the gas station and all that. What? No, I'm gonna go into the .com world. I'm gonna make $1 million by the time I'm 30, right? So go to the University of Minnesota, get my marketing degree, graduate in 1999. I'm sorry, in 2001. And start my professional career in sales and marketing. I worked for a Fortune 500 company in my first job out of college. It was great. Things went well. My boss asked me to follow her to a startup at .com world, right? Let's go, and help that company grow. And the gentleman and his partner that started the company sold it, made a ton of money. They were in their 30s, and I got zero. That wasn't in my contract. That's their entitlement to do. But it got me thinking, what on earth could I do in my 30s? I'm in my 20s, but how could I be them? And the light bulb went off and I had an epiphany. I'm like, oh, it's construction. It's a family business for me. So my father and I started talking. And in 2005, that's when I had my career epiphany and I went to work for him. And I worked as a superintendent. I worked as an assistant project manager. I used my business development background to help grow that business. We were a small company and we were doing, in our prime, we were doing $7 million a year, but just the two of us. It was all subcontracted work. It was not self-performed, but I would carry a tool bag when it was necessary, whether it was some light carpentry work or swinging a door or swapping out door hardware, because those things change on the schedules and the client shifts and pivots what they want to do. So learn some of those skills, obviously. You sit and observe and you go, oh, that's how you paint a wall without putting all the masking tape up. I'm going to do that at my house, right? Tile work, you're like, that's how they do it? Okay, I'm going to do that at my house. And you take some of those skills from being in the field and you apply them at home and you practice, and you know what it's like and how hard it is to do it. And then you can relate to the subcontractors like Ryan was talking about, right? So 2005, 2009, everything's rocking and rolling. 2008 happened. And some of you may not know what that means, but it was the credit crisis. And all of our house values went like that. It was an election year. There was a scramble to save the banks. It was a big deal. The federal government bailed out all the banks, and they put significant regulation on bank lending. And a similar crisis had happened in 1990 when I was a young kid. And I looked at my dad in 2008 and I asked him, how bad is this? Is this like 90? He said, worse. It scared me. It scared me big time because I just found my passion again. I was a student again with Peter from 2007 to 2009. I was getting my construction management certificate. And I thought, I gotta go find a job. This is the company I wanted to build. And it really ripped my heart out, not gonna lie. There were a lot of lessons learned personally and professionally between 2009 and 2010 for me about intestinal fortitude, about not giving up on your dreams, and about what it takes to survive when you've gotten knocked on your butt. So I did. I survived, and I left the business. I had to. I fortunately had a skill set for my prior experience that allowed me to find employment. I went into the mining sector. I worked for a company based out of Salt Lake, Utah. I stayed in Minnesota, and I took over an operations manager role for them at a branch location, selling drilling supplies and tooling, things that were used up in the Iron Range for copper, nickel, gold, and silver for mineral exploration. That was a successful venture for me for a hot minute, and they gave me an opportunity to take on a North American role where I had the opportunity to start overseeing a category for drill rigs that were somewhat expensive pieces of equipment. I got to travel to Europe and Asia, as well as Canada, Mexico, and all over the United States. But I wasn't happy. It wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't my passion. So Valley Paving, the company I worked for in college, they knew that. They became family friends. I had personal relationships with them. They had a large infrastructure project on I-94 right in front of the University of Minnesota. It was a job trailer assignment, and it was a pretty big deal. It was about a $25 million project. They were the prime. They had all the risks, and they needed a project manager, and they knocked on my door, and I said, let's go. So I worked for them for a little bit. The idea was I was going to work for them for that season, and then they were going to lay me off for the winter, and I'd go ice fishing, and I'd get to go maybe do some travel and not get as much gray hair from working 90 to 100 hours a week. And I stayed, and it was a wonderful journey. It was a great opportunity, but because of those travels I'd done previously, I'd seen other parts of the United States that piqued my interest, and Georgia was one of them. So a recruiter called, and there was an opportunity to make a move to a heavy industrial company in the power generation business. They wanted me to work for them in both business development, but also as a project manager within their EPC group. And that was really intriguing to me, to work in engineering, procure and construct, to do the design, to buy the equipment and then construct it and build all that integrated schedule together. It was wildly cool for me to get to do that. And it was an opportunity that I dabbled a bit in with our small company, my father's business, but I was going to get to work for a Japanese-owned company that was funding a Georgia-based operation that they acquired. And it seemed like they were growing. I was like, I can't believe they're hiring me. Yeah, let's go. 3 months in, I was like, what did I do? I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh no, but I'm staying in Georgia. I'm going to figure this out. And it was a short opportunity. I sharpened the resume, and I went and found an opportunity with a German company in Atlanta. I worked for them for 4 years. It's rigging, millwright, huge, mechanical work, piping for water conveyance, for plumbing, for steam, and then electrical. And what I discovered for me is that I'd created a niche that was more leaning towards the industrial world of construction, and not the high-rise buildings, not the corporate headquarters of a Best Buy or Medtronic or someone of that nature, but I would be building important infrastructure for manufacturing. And I liked it, and it was something I was passionate about. That company grew quite a bit. partially because of me and one other teammate, and we had some success. And I was introduced to my present employer for a project, and they were not successful obtaining that project that we were going to be a subcontract partner for them on. But I really, really, really liked the culture and some of the individuals I met, and we started talking, and I came over here. And so now I work for the Haskell Company. It's a EPC firm. We do design build, we do both. And some of our projects in the consumer packaged goods world would be making potato chips, or maybe making a dry cleaning facility for a company that rents clothes to individuals. I worked on a project that the president was going to come to before COVID. And I thought, oh no, how am I going to deal with my project schedule with the Secret Service all over me? Now, fortunately for me, that didn't happen because of COVID, that trip got canceled, but it was going to happen. And it was kind of cool to think about that maybe I would have been on a project that the President of the United States would come to. Not a sexy project, but it was important to him, I guess. Then the current project I'm working on, I make cans. The facility's going to make beer cans. Wouldn't think that's a big deal, but a lot of people aren't drinking beer out of a keg right now. They're enjoying it out of a can because we're all at home. So I've definitely had a journey, is what I'm trying to share. So I guess really, what does that have to do with me? It's really just saying be passionate about what you do. And I think the journey kind of goes like this, and up and down and left and right. And I made mistakes, and I made good decisions, and I had decisions made for me that were outside of my control. And you just continue to keep your head, above water, and don't give up on yourself. I do not regret the risks that I took in anything I've done along the way. Where there's risk, there's sometimes reward. And if you make a mistake, there's an opportunity for growth that comes out of it. Take stock in yourself and pat yourself on the back when you have a moment of success. Don't do what I did early on in my youth, where I just kept checking boxes because it was what I was told to do. Make sure you reward yourself with a word of encouragement, or maybe a Vexilar that you want to go ice fishing with, or something for something you've done well. Maybe it's a dinner, or maybe it's a special bottle of wine, or whatever you're wanting to reward yourself with. Do that. I found a quote when life was failing for me in 2009, and it's Roger Babson, and it's keep in mind that neither success nor failure is ever final. And I've held on to that one, because when things are going really well, I still look over my shoulder and wonder am I doing everything to maintain it? But if it does happen where a decision's made for you, or you make a mistake, just know that there's another corner, there's another season coming, and it's going to be good, right? Continue to learn throughout your career. We talked about that. Learn from your peers. Some of the best things I've learned are admiring what other people's work is and asking for them to teach me how to do it. Learn from your mentors. I think we all will find who those mentors are. Brandon, he and I have been talking, before this for several weeks now. You learn from your mentors, but Brandon, I want to know you for a long time, but you might find a better mentor some other day, right? And I think you stack up those mentors, and I have those people. There's still people that are executives with companies that I never worked for, but I met. Peter, we talked about Huck Finn. Huck is very involved with the university, and I met him actually through the University of Minnesota through the Quiz Bowl, and he and I still talk intermittently and chat about each other's what we're seeing in the marketplace. But I have other mentors that have guided me too. Learn from your customers. Your customers will teach you more about business than you probably know right now, but you're gonna start to be invited into people's businesses, and they're going to tell you how their business runs. And you sign these NDA waivers, so you can't tell anybody about it, but you're shocked that you get brought into people's homes in their business, and they actually tell you how they make money. And they start to use lingo that's accounting terms and financial terms and things of that nature. And you're like, hey, I'm just here to build a building. But you need to know that language so you can put what you're trying to do into their vocabulary, right? So listen to them and learn from them. And then you have to continue to make a personal investment in yourself. I listen to books on Audible. I read some books about mindfulness. I listen to books about extreme ownership. Mindfulness will help you deal with stress. Stress management is an important part of any career, not just this industry. But at a certain point in your career, middle management, about where Ryan, you and I might be, all arrows point to us. And there's times when you're serving everybody and you need more support. Speak up when that happens, but you need to be steady and you need to take a break and whatever that is, and make sure you recenter and refocus so you can make good decisions, not rash ones, right? Last two things, determine what your passion is. If you're lucky, you'll find it sooner than I did. But when you find it, don't let anybody take it away from you. The economy tried to take it from me. I wouldn't let it happen, right? And if you haven't found it yet, keep looking. It will serve you well in your personal relationships. You'll be happy. You'll find joy. Work is not the only thing. The last thing is invest time in the people that matter most. That could be peers. It could be coworkers. It could be your best friends. It could be your significant others. It could be your parents. It could be your grandparents, whoever those people are. And then maybe even volunteerism, opportunities to expand who you can serve. There's joy in surrounding yourself with the best and brightest people that you can. And when you do that, you're going to live a more fulfilling career and personal life. So.
Well, Brett, thanks for elaborating on that journey. You talk about, how many times you've sort of switched on the way, but you always had the passion. I remember even talking about that in probably Spec and Tech, sitting after class talking about your Valley paving experience and where you wanted to go and where you wanted to head. So, when one door closes, a window opens, and you're a great example of that. And also the kinds of jobs that you were working on sort of speak to what Ryan was talking about, the ones that you don't think about, the ones that are sort of unimportant behind the scenes are the ones that can actually create a hell of a lot of personal value for you and have a meaningful process. Somebody's got to be there building spaces that make stuff for us, the rest of us, to survive, That's really important. But I have one critical question for you. So, are you driving a Ferrari or a BMW?
I don't have my keys on me. I can't show you. It's not a Ferrari, but it is a BMW. So
okay, only because they're made in Atlanta, right? Or
Greenville, South Carolina.
South Carolina. Okay.
And I worked in that plant, believe it or not. So
good. So you got your car. That's the important part.
Yeah,
here. Yeah. You have some questions. You have some questions on the list here. So
Jennifer, this is for both of you guys or either of you, whoever wants to take it. She says, nothing is permanent, obviously, and life is rarely what you think it will be. Any thoughts on pivoting in your life and career and tips for networking, resume updates, and interviews?
You want to start, Ryan?
Yeah, sure. Gosh, yeah, I have kind of, my life's taken a lot of turns. When I first graduated high school, I was going to be a police officer and be in the Army Reserves, and I had my entire life planned out. Then I went to college for 1 year for it, and I quit. And I'm not doing anything close to that anymore. So life changes a lot, and you make decisions. Like Brett said, whether they're your decisions or someone else makes them for you. The only thing constant is change, right? So as far as pivoting, in your life. Yeah, my life has changed quite a bit. My personal relationships have changed. Um, I've had to take time off like months from work because like it just got to me. I was so stressed out that I just had to take a break and escape for a little bit, and my family focused on some other things. My wife went back and finished her degree in on the East Coast for a little bit, and that was really good for me actually, to just kind of take a breather and get away and kind of refresh my outlook on what I wanted to do. And I think I came back stronger. But I let the job get to me. I carried my projects on me night and day. I wasn't sleeping. I couldn't do anything but think about my projects and what needed to happen. And I think Brett touched on that, and I thought that was really important, that you got to find a balance and you got to stay level-headed. I didn't, and it wasn't good. Tips for networking, resume updates. I don't know. I guess personally, that's always kind of come natural for me. I haven't sought anything out like that, but I converse with folks no matter who it is, and you kind of just find some common ground on a personal level and stuff. And I guess that's kind of how I've done my networking. And interviews are the same way. I try not to really get too stressed out. I try to approach interviews that it's as much about me interviewing them to see if they fit for me as it is them interviewing me. You know, I don't think you should change who you are to fit their mold or what you think they want to see you as in the interview. You just be yourself, and if they like that, great. If they don't, it's not right. But I guess that would be my big interview tip. Now, Brett, I'll let you go from here.
So I'm trying to see which question we're on because I lost track. I apologize. So
Jennifer's question up
there
a
we
couple.
go. So yeah, pivoting your life and your career. Well, Jennifer, you want to reach out? I can give you a lot of not to dos. So I just got married a year ago, right? I'm 41 years of age, and I sacrificed a lot of personal relationships by not having them early in my career, and that was right or wrong, just kind of where I was at. I think as I've probably matured, I matured late is what I think, that I really made a personal commitment to myself when I moved to Atlanta. I hit the reset button in life when I moved to Atlanta is what I tell people. And I was happy. I had joy. I was never, sad about my career choices or my personal life, but I just wanted to try something different to see what would happen when I moved. So I guess for me, that was my pivot was moving to Atlanta from Minnesota. I lived there for 34 years and born and raised, absent of the 2 years at the Big 12 school that we won't talk about. But I just say be true to yourself and know what you want. And I think good things happen to good people. I think if you continue to push yourself in your career and maybe take on, Ryan, you talked about maybe take on the things you don't know how to do or the things that nobody else wants to do. You become a subject matter expert, and then people start to reward you for that in your career. And that may be internal within an organization, or it may be external with it, with a different company. So continue to challenge yourself career-wise and continue to push the boundaries for yourself personally. So I think Ryan and I are natural speakers. That's why we're comfortable in interview settings, I would presume. If you're not comfortable, go take Toastmasters. If you're not comfortable in networking environments, after COVID, go to the bar by yourself and go make friends. I had to do that when I moved to another city, a 4-hour plane or 3-hour plane ride away. Push your boundaries, and it will help you mature quicker than I did. So
Well, what you're saying though, Brett, is that your decision to move to Atlanta was a brave decision.
it was outside my comfort zone. So,
Atlanta Braves. That's what I'm
boom,
It
boom,
was a Peter dad joke. Yeah.
well, at least you didn't say the Buzz or something like that, because I know you're a Georgia Tech grad.
Yes, I am. I am. So what's been your, well, let's see here from Mads, we have, can you elaborate on what kinds of business knowledge you'd recommend that we have going into the industry as aspiring PMs?
Don't worry about it. You'll figure it out. I mean that. It'll come to you naturally through osmosis. Everybody keeps talking about PMs. Don't worry about titles. At the company I work at, it's assistant project manager, straight out of college. There's 2 levels of that. Then after that, there's 2 levels of project management, which is PM1, PM2, and the next level is senior project manager after that. And that's what I've been rewarded with recently is that opportunity. And every step along the way in that journey within my company is an experience, right? So depending on the project needs, you'll have different responsibilities at each step. And sometimes you'll be on a large team with say 12 people, like the one I'm on right now, and everybody's you kind of figure out what everybody's strengths are. Maybe you find out a few people that want to take on a challenge and learn something new, so you give that to them. But I think to answer your question, you learn a lot just by being present and developing your career. Accounting and finance, if you haven't taken that, consider reading some books about it. Project budgeting and project financials were something that I learned along the way. I've always had a knack for math, so kind of works out for me. But if you haven't done that, that's important. If you're going into business for yourself, then go take some online marketing, digital marketing coursework or something of that nature. Brandon, you and I have chatted about that some. So if you don't know something, just invest in yourself. So anything that has to do with budgeting, financials, anything that has to do with marketing, if you're going to be on that side of the business, just digital marketing is kind of the next wave of marketing. Nobody's spending marketing on magazines anymore. I don't know if that answers questions.
Well, would you recommend, I mean, do you both read? I mean, do you read stuff that's even not necessarily disciplinary just to become informed? How important is that for you?
I'm deeply involved in the Atlanta Business Journal, which is, I think in Minneapolis is the Minneapolis St. Paul Biz Journals.
Journal, yep.
Yeah. I like to know what's going on. What are my competitors doing? What cool things are they doing? Industry, trade, journals, E&R is a good one. I start to see market trends where the company could go, what projects maybe we have some skill sets at that we could pursue. I feed leads to our business development teams and say, hey, we have experience doing this. What do you guys think? Then I put my name up or raise my hand if I want a certain project. BIM is a big thing for us right now. So we're doing, we'll actually go scan an existing building and put it into the 3D model, and then do all of our clash detection with all of our subcontract partners who also have BIM capabilities. So we can actually fly through a building and look for obstacles, or fire protection is a big one, right? You got to have certain coverages. You can't have a sprinkler pipe that clashes with ductwork, right? It's not possible. So if you're looking to read about technology and construction, we are an old dinosaur in the industry as far as technology across all industry. The things that we use email, 10 years ago, Ryan, was that about the greatest technology you had? Was maybe on your phone? And now we're starting to adopt technology. It's changing. The industry's finally changing. I think it's because we got younger people, Ryan and I included, that are starting to accept it, the use of technology to make our life easier. Read about how people do prefabricated work, right? You can actually prefab buildings now. And the next evolution of that's going to be 3D printing of buildings. So read about what's the experimental stuff in the industry. And then you might find a passion out of it. Might find a career.
Well, good. Well, I think we're about out of time, aren't we, Courtney?
Yeah, we are. You know, maybe as part of just a closing, 30 seconds or so from each of you, Samuel just was asking a little bit about what's that skill that you say, you establish or maintain? What's the most important skill that you have to maintain those important relationships over time?
Ryan, do you want to take that?
Sure. I think quickly I would just say relating to everybody. Again, you're going to rely on people that you need them to do stuff for you, and if you can just kind of connect with them on some level where they respect you and can appreciate you, I think they'll help you a lot more than them doing stuff for you because you're the big bad guy that beat them up and told them they had to do it. I think it'll go further if you just can maintain personal relationship status. That's not to say that you need to be best friends with everybody and go have a beer every day with them, but just treat people with respect, and I think it'll help you.
I'd say follow up on your promises. Do what you say you're going to do. And that goes for not when your boss calls, but also to your peers. Follow up is key. And maintaining those relationships, for me, it's been natural, but I'm typically the person that calls the friends and family and coworkers to check in on them. I call all my guys that are in the job trailer on the weekends, not necessarily to just talk about the project, but how are they doing? We don't do work in Atlanta. We do work everywhere else but, and people are away from their families because of it. And so it's important to me that they know somebody cares, because I actually do. And if you do that and you treat people well, they will run through the brick wall.
Well, no, they shouldn't do that without a hard hat on. Okay, no running through brick walls, okay? Don't pass that along to these students or tell them that that's going to be part of their career. So, well, with that, I think, on behalf of Courtney and everybody else, students here, I really appreciate your taking the time to chat with us, to give us our storyboard. So these are always good stories, and I think they're informative to help guide our students on their own journey. So.
Yes, and I did share both Brett and Ryan's contact information in the chat. So they're both open to connecting with you all afterwards as well. So thank you. We really appreciate it. And
absolutely. If you guys ever want to reach out, absolutely shoot me a note.
And LinkedIn, connect to both of us on LinkedIn. I see we're both there. Please add me on LinkedIn.
Yep.
I'd be happy to make
That's
you
networking.
Any introductions that you see in my network, I will help. I promise.
Thank you both. Thank you to all the students who joined us tonight. We really appreciate it. And if you all have any other ideas of topics and things you might be interested in the future, let us know. We'll be happy to try to find some alumni that will share their stories next time. So thank you all. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.